The first round of the 2019 FIA Karting European Championships for the KZ shifter categories begins at Pro Kart Raceland near Wackersdorf in Germany, the site of the 2017 World Championship. The fast and technical nature of the circuit can be tricky enough without the constant threat of rain. The drivers are already struggling to adapt to the changing weather conditions, and with rain featuring throughout practice, everybody is praying for a dry final. Whatever happens, it's the start of one of the toughest championships in motorsport. Time to go on board with KZ2 Sody Kart driver Hubert Petit around Pro Kart Raceland in Wackersdorf. Flat on the throttle through the first chicane for the optimum line through to turn 3, flip the throttle and accelerate through the corner before heavy braking for the right hairpin. Lots of room for an overtake. Back on the gas and keep the foot down through the next left-hander before planting the brake pedal for turn 6. Hard to get right, very easy to get wrong. Now you're balancing the throttle for the next 2 right apexes as you try to build momentum and carry the speed. Then heavy braking again for the chicane. You need a lot of patience here before you speed up again through the left. A short burst of speed for the left hairpin. This opens out nicely as you steady the kart and head up towards the slightly faster right hairpin. You can get on the power quicker through the exit before you travel over the fast crest down the back straight that threatens to throw you into the gravel trap at the final corner. Just dab the brakes on turn in and a third of the way through, get back on the power and blast down the straight once more. Fast, technical and an incredible challenge, all rolled into 1190 metres.
We have 51 drivers taking part into Academy, and so you have 51 complete go-karts to bring at the track, and all the spare parts, all the things they need. So for sure you need a good organization at home to prepare all the material, but also a good organization at the track, because they have to prepare everything and to give the best service to the drivers.
So we have on one hand the KZ category, where really manufactured drivers are involved mainly. And then we have the KZ2 category, where still some, let me say, father and son teams. If you compare this nowadays with the OK Junior, it's more and more professional teams and very, very little private teams, real private teams. This is also the right way that we can offer something for private teams or smaller teams to satisfy them as well.
The FIA Karting Academy Trophy gives young racers from around the world the chance to represent their country in a 3-round series with every driver running identical karts to the very last bolt. With the OTK group handling the chassis and the OK Junior Spec 125cc liquid-cooled Vortex engines, and with Bridgestone providing the tyres, the racing all comes down to the drivers, who have been hand-picked by their respective motorsport governing bodies to race in the premier karting paddock in the world. There's no gearbox, no battery, no starter, no clutch. Just no-holds-barred racing. Former champions include W Series racer Marta Garcia and Ferrari Formula 1 driver Charles Leclerc, who will become the 10th champion in the Academy Trophy. With 51 drivers starting the weekend, the highest-ranked 34 from the heats would line up for the final. Robert De Haan starting on pole position from Paolo Ferrari. At the rolling start, De Haan timed it perfectly, and the Dutchman surged across the circuit to lead the race ahead of Denmark's Magnus Johansson Doe, with Ferrari slotting into third. As the field made their way to the first hairpin, somebody was going to run out of room. Sadly, it was the fastest driver from time qualifying, Singapore's Christian Ho, who would drop to the back of the field. On the next bend, Eloy Lopez and KZ2 would collide, with the latter retiring on the spot. For the rest of the field, just staying on track in the first lap was a tough task. The Mexican would push start his kart again, but Lopez would have more bad luck to come. With Dehaan, Jermaine and Ferrari up front, the talented Indonesian Gar Julian had made a phenomenal start to the race, storming up to 4th position ahead of South Africa's Joshua Kurza. But Ferrari wasn't happy languishing back in 3rd, and at his first opportunity, he lunged back into 2nd place, with Julian and Kurza now giving chase to the Dane in 3rd, with all 4 men still in the hunt behind Dehaan. It was then a sad exit for New Zealand's Jacob Douglas after a top 10 start, but he'll be back for more at Sarno. With Kurza past Julian, he was now ready to pass Jermaine Doe, but he wasn't. For Dehaan and Ferrari ahead, this was perfect. A lap later, and it was game over for Filip Jenic of Serbia, Nicolas Baptiste of Colombia, and Lucas Mendes of Brazil, with all 3 of them out at turn 3. Incredibly, nobody else hit them, but for Baptiste, it was all too much to bear. Having got himself back up to 2nd, the Italian star Paolo Ferrari was now struggling for pace, causing a problem for the drivers behind, as they needed to get past before the Dutchman in the lead disappeared for good. With Dehaan untroubled in the lead, Kurza made his way to 3rd position and decided to take up the task of dealing with Ferrari. Lopez continued his day of despair as he was ordered to move over and let the leaders lap him. But it would all come to nothing anyway, as he would then be handed a black flag, and his day was done. Charlie Wirtz, son of F1 star Alex, had now joined the back of the 2nd position train, and it wasn't long before he saw a moment to pounce. He dived up the inside of Gar Julian, and 5th position was his. Eventually, Kurza and Jermaine Doe both found their way past Ferrari, leaving the Italian to defend from Wirtz. But Gar Julian wasn't finished yet, and after he and Wirtz had both dealt with Ferrari, he surged past the Austrian and into a brilliant 4th on his European debut. Behind them, Fuki Tanaka of Japan had passed Ferrari for 6th. Jermaine Doe was now putting pressure on Kurza in 2nd, but try as he might, there was just no way through. Into the final lap, and he tried one more time, but the South Africans' defensive tactics were more than a match for the Danish ace. But ahead of them, Robert Dehaan of the Netherlands was completely unchallenged and took a dominant victory, not losing a single race all weekend.
Yeah, the result is very good. I start from 1st, and after the first 2 laps I think a gap from 4/10 or something. In the beginning they can stay close behind me, and on the end they're going to fight, and then I take my gap bigger.
I just had to keep my head together. It was very difficult conditions, and the final is what counted. I wasn't expecting to finish 2nd, maybe 3rd. I was expecting to finish like 5th, 4th, so it was a very big surprise.
Didn't have the speed to start, but it comes in the end. Just doing everything I could to get temperature in the tires, to get the speed up to the Saudi Arabia driver.
It's a fantastic opportunity for the boys to get into. I think the main thing here is that they're also identically set up, the karts, that the racing is going to be really tough. Well, the great thing with this chassis and the idea of the championship is that you can't change too much. So your changes are limited somewhat, so that tends to make it a bit easier to make a decision on which way we're going to go. You know, I want to put my arm around my boy when he's having a bad day and cheer him on when he's having a good day, but ultimately I'm trying my best to just give him the best kart, the best equipment possible. You know, because the karts are even, you can see that the kids are fairly evenly matched out there. They're all giving each other good respect at the moment, so we'll see if that lasts through till Sunday. But yeah, it's a great race. It's a great weekend, I think.
The KZ2 category is the first step for drivers wanting fast and frenetic racing at the pinnacle of world karting. Shifter racing requires more speed, more strength and a lot more discipline if you want to win. 125cc liquid-cooled two-stroke engines, a 6-speed gearbox, around 50 brake horsepower at a minimum weight of 175 kilograms, with Bridgestone tyres and using the best karting chassis and engines in the world, run by the most elite teams in the sport. With Adrien Renaudet stepping up to KZ, there's a guarantee of a new champion. And with 75 drivers in the running, it's an open playing field to decide who'll become the next European champion. After 15 heats of exciting competition, home hero Alexander Schmitz would start from pole position, alongside Sweden's Emil Scaras, with an all-Italian second row shared by Giuseppe Palomba and Simone Cunati. As the lights went out, Scaras made the perfect launch forward, with Palomba threatening to overtake Schmitz, but the German would settle into second position early, whilst Pierre Loubert was lucky to get away with a massive slide through the first right-hander. Unfortunately, Lorenzo Giannoni was out on the first corner, whilst another local favourite, David Trevelovs, had a struggle on lap 1 to make progress through the field, after a win in the heats the previous day. The first man to put on a show was Paolo Bezencenes, as the French racer passed his countryman Emilien Denner, whilst ahead of them, David Vidales had his sights set on Palomba, who had allowed Philip Hall and Simone Cunati to get through. Riccardo Longhi was making up for lost time by charging through the pack, picking off his opponents one by one. Scaras was leading solidly from Schmitz and Cunati as the three began to pull away. Not everybody was finding overtaking easy, as Max Paul and David Trevelovs were finding out at their home racetrack, with Paul Everard ready to pounce if things got messy. Soon Longhi had made progress enough to challenge the leaders, with Palomba proving to be the first obstacle. Despite getting boxed in behind Philip Hall, Palomba was adamant that Longhi wouldn't get past him so smoothly as he'd wished, so he dived at the final hairpin to pass the Swede, and he managed inadvertently to allow the Birolart racer Longhi to overtake as well. Longhi then saw a gap to move up again, only to have it slammed shut in his face. Senna van Welsteen then learned that Emilien Denner is not a man to quarrel with, as the Dutchman suddenly found he had run out of road to drive on. He saved it, but lost 4 places in the process. He bounced back quickly as he made short work of Sweden's Alexander Dahlberg. Pierre Loubert was next, and he was not prepared to hang around behind Max Tubben as he made the move at turn 4, leaving him vulnerable to attack from Max Paul. Then, heartbreak. Schmitz crawled to a stop and out of the race. What could have been a fairy tale turned into a tragedy. That left Scaras out in the lead ahead of Cunati, but the battle wasn't won yet. Lap after lap, they were being pursued and caught by Riccardo Longhi, who had finally moved up to third. It seemed only a matter of time before the two would become 3 fighting for victory. But Cunati was doing everything he could to pass the leader before he was caught by Longhi. Behind the leaders, Palomba and Denner were still locked in a fascinating battle, as Longhi became part of the battle for victory at last. With a couple of laps to go, it was now going to be a matter of who blinks first, Scaras needing to come up with some special moves to keep the 2 Italians back. Incredibly, the Swede was more than a match for his 2 opponents as he doggedly halted his rivals in their tracks for the toughest 2 laps of his career. With only 1 corner to go, both Cunati and Longhi were ready with their race-winning overtakes, and as they ploughed into the final turn, nobody knew who would emerge ahead. However, Scaras held on by the slimmest of margins, 1/10 of a second covering the whole podium. In fantastic fashion, Scaras grabbed an amazing win.
Yeah, the final was very tough. I managed to do a great start, and after I had a small gap almost all the race to Simone, and in the second last lap I made a mistake, and after, yeah, was very tight the last 2 laps.
Really happy about this result, but yesterday unfortunately with the rain is not really a good day. But today in the final we were fast from the first lap, and in the final lap I closed the gap with Emil, but I think that it was a risk to try to pass him.
Yes, the final was quite complicated because I was starting from 13th position, but I made a very good start, and because I made up the positions, I could recover. I caught up with them on the last lap, but they both kept the door closed on me, so I couldn't create an attack, and that's why I ended up third.
Yeah, it's been a magic weekend. The final results was amazing, but the weekend was very tough because the weather condition, Emil and the energy being adapted in any condition. That's from qualifying was very good. Then we go better. We survive it to rain, dry, and this allow us to start in the first row. Emil make a very good start, lead all the races, which is not very easy because Kunati has been all the way along very close to us, the gap never get bigger. Then Emil made a couple of mistakes, so the last 2 laps was like full of adrenaline, but he managed. The guy behind used the head, we didn't try any crash in the contact, so we managed and very happy. So very good weekend at the end.
There's only one way to describe KZ. This is the elite short track karting championship in Europe. The fastest cars, the toughest opposition, and the hardest category to win in the sport. With a 6-speed gearbox, the liquid-cooled 125cc two-stroke engines scream around the circuit at around 50 brake horsepower, and with a minimum weight of 170 kilos, and those phenomenal Bridgestone tyres. Max Verstappen won the title in 2013 on his way to Formula 1, and with former European champions Baz Lammers, Rick Driesen, Paolo Di Conto, Marco Ardigo and Jorrit Pex all on the grid, you've got to beat the very best to be European champion. The reigning European champion Jorrit Pex would line up on pole position alongside Anthony Abbas, with Vigano and Orlando on the second row. But after a slight pause for Francesco Salenta stalling at the back of the grid, the race would begin in earnest, and the tables would quickly turn in the Frenchman's favour. The Sodi Kart driver would launch away perfectly and slice across Pex into the lead. Orlando edged in front of Vigano as the Tony Kart teammates Lorenzo Camplese and Simo Puhaka duelled for 5th position. It was going to be a long race for former champions as Paolo Di Conto, Marco Ardigo, Fabian Federer, Pedro Hiltbrand and Rick Driesen were all struggling for pace. (2018) KZ2 European champion Adrien Renaudin was enjoying his new berth in KZ and duelling with Paolo Di Conto and Rick Driesen in the early stages. At the end of lap 1, Alessandro Orlando saw the writing on the wall and realised he couldn't afford to be stuck behind Jorrit Pex. Then Matteo Vigano completely upstaged his effort with an almighty overtake around the outside of the Turn 4 hairpin. Not bad for last year's KZ2 International Super Cup winner. Lorenzo Camplese's race would be compounded by a gentle tap into Jorrit Pex. It would be enough to nudge the front fairing out of position, and his race would be compromised, picking up a penalty post-race. Jorrit Pex was struggling for speed at this stage, and the queue was forming up behind, led by Camplese and Puhaka. Baz Lammers was making progress to catch them, but passing would be another matter. Puhaka then showed his impatience by passing his teammate in a bid to take on Pex. Marin Kremers and Marco Ardigo were next in line, threatening their own assault, ahead of Paolo Di Conto. Baz Lammers found the space to pass Camplese and set off after Puhaka on the other Tony kart, and heading into lap 4, he now had a genuine chance of a podium finish. Anthony Abbas continued in the lead with Birilat's Alessandro Irlando shadowing his every move. A very impressive comeback from the Italian. The race would be short-lived for Eliska Simonova as she retired at the final hairpin. Ardigo didn't take long to make waves as he planted a perfect overtake on his teammate Camplese. Incredibly, Vigano then got the jump on Irlando to grab second position. However, catching the leader was going to be very tough. Johan Sugel would join Simonova and Salenta on the sidelines with mechanical failure, just as Baz Lammers made the move on Puhaka and Pedro Hiltbrand received a slap on the wrist from the officials. Ardigo then made a bold move on Puhaka to overtake, as Kramers made the same lunge on Camplese. Meanwhile, the continuing adventures of Pedro Hiltbrand had led to an investigation, with a 10-second penalty coming his way post-race. A day to forget for the Spaniard. Baz Lammers was now hassling Jorik Pex and seized the move at his first opportunity, now up into fourth. It was a solid recovery drive from Baz Lammers, but his teammate in the lead, Anthony Abbas, was dominating so convincingly that he chose to replicate a spectacular celebration over the finish line that Lammers had executed previously this season. A stunning win, and now Abbas leads the European Championship.
The final was really amazing. Since a long time I don't win a final with a big gap like this. In the past, when I win my first title when I was in mini class, so I do exactly the same. So it's again a signature when I am really happy.
I take this weekend very positive, and we take good point also for fight for the championship in Sarno. We are competitive in Sarno. We have good material, and there it works very good. So we will see what happens.
Yeah, you know, we miss a little bit compared to Anto, but yeah, I'm pretty happy about the results. The team deserved this, and yeah, now looking forward to the next one. Sarno can be a new chance to fight for the title, and then we'll see us Sunday after the final.
Hard this week with the condition, change a lot compared to Wednesday, Thursday. So I'm really happy about all the work from my team, because it was hard to follow the track until the final, and to pass from 13 lap to 26. So really happy also for Bas, because he come back a lot for position. I expect that we can win, but not, like. It looks easy from the outside, it's not, but honestly the gap was quite big, so do a fantastic race. And also a really good job from TM engine, because dry, rain, we were always there in the front, so really happy.
So, after a brilliant weekend of racing here in Wackersdorf, the second and final weekend of the KZ and KZ2 European Championships and the next chapter of the FIA Karting Academy Trophy will take place next month at Sarno in Italy, where the Gearbox Champions of Europe will be crowned.